Hi, everyone. This is Amy Major with Spirit Rescue Talk. I have Philip Siracusa here with me today. He is my guest, and we're going to be talking quite a bit about his books, his work, his history in the paranormal. And I want to introduce him now, and he can give us a little bit of a history of where he's come, where he's been, and where he's going with his work. Hi, Philip. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. When you reached out to me and I looked at your background, I'm like, oh my gosh, I absolutely have to have you on this show. You have a wealth of knowledge and experience in the paranormal and in the metaphysical as well. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Um, I'm the average guy supporting a family, blue collar worker. I was always questionable about this paranormal phenomenon exist, demons, ghosts, and things to that nature. And it wasn't up until I bought the home that I'm in now in 2010 that I realized that all these things do exist. And it no longer becomes a question, but a fact of life. That other realms, um, even though we can't see them, do exist simultaneously within our realms, which means that things can come through, in and out of portals. So that's how I got started. I've always had an attachment through adolescence, like a spirit attachment, which
Mhm.
sometimes you don't know if it's psychosomatic, power of thought, or something following you. And then, as I guess, as you get older in life, you start to put the pieces together of your puzzle of life. And
Mhm.
when you do that, it starts to unfold, and you look backwards on each piece that was put together and say, wait a second, this happened because this happened because this happened. And that's how these experiences, the paranormal and the ghostly things started to happen in my life. So that's a sketch of how I got started and where I am today.
Wow. So, how did you know that you actually had an attachment? Was there any kind of clues that kind of said this is something more than just what's going on in my head?
Back in the 70s, from Staten Island, New York, I would see shadows. And I would tell my parents, and it was dismissed as, maybe the lights are blinking or the cast of the sun coming through the windows. But it wasn't up until like I was 13, 14 years old where I started to hear whispers. And there was nothing on, no TV at times, no one was home. And it's the other side trying to communicate, but I didn't understand it because we're going way back in the day now, maybe the early 80s. So as time goes on, these attachments can grow with us.
Mhm.
And if you don't know what it is or what you're dealing with, some of them are malevolent in ways where it's hard to comprehend. So I remember I was 19 years old. I went to a friend's mom's house, and she was a well-known psychic in Staten Island. And I says, hey, do me a favor. Can you do the Ouija board? I feel like something's following me. And I'll tell you, I didn't believe in no Ouija board, but I says, well, you know what? Why not? Everybody likes her. She's well known.
Right.
She supposedly helps find missing kids with the police department.
Wow.
And she's in the living room with me alone. And I went to sit on the couch. But she goes, you can't sit there. Someone's sitting there. I says, but there's nobody there. She goes, you can't sit there. There's somebody sitting there. She's seen somebody. I did it. And then I sat on another chair. And then she was using the Ouija board and telling me things that she doesn't know about me at all. She doesn't even know my family. And that enlightened me to know that we are not alone. There is another side. And I remember sharing that story all over New York and telling everybody, you cannot believe this. And wow, it was an amazing, amazing testimony. And the shadow was a spirit of a female, of a young girl named Sarah, who somehow um, was part of me from a past life.
So she knew you in a past life, but she was still earthbound? Or was she a fragment of your soul? Because it can both happen that way.
Part of a soul group.
Okay.
Soul group. So the way I understood it, the way the psychic was telling me was that yes, you're born and you come into the world in a soul group, a group of souls that want to go through similar journeys on
Right.
this lifespan, no matter what it is, no matter how old you live till. But sometimes other lifetimes come through in the physical realm with you to watch your journey that are not born into this realm at this time.
Hmm.
Well, but it still gives me goosebumps. But I learned a lot because I was like curious, and she was right.
So this girl, Sarah, was she a ghost that was just circling around you and just spending time with you because she was part of your soul group?
Well, I'm going to get into that a little bit later on as we get to where we are today, because Sarah's been a big part of everything of my life.
Wow.
But that's just like the backstory of it, of how I got started and my curiosity. And they always say that be careful of intent, because intent and belief can make things believable, even though you never believed it in the first place. You gave it power to manifest in the physical realm.
Well, awareness creates power, it feeds the energy. And whenever you're
Yes.
feeding the energy of something, it amplifies it, becomes even more involved in your reality, and you're now focusing on it more than you ever have before, which feeds the energy even more.
Yes. Yes.
So
So
it's
true.
and it's great. There's so many people that don't believe in
Oh,
they don't believe
oh,
in ghosts, they don't believe in anything unless they actually have that experience themselves. Is there anything that you can kind of discuss with your own personal situations and experiences that kind of tells people they really should believe whether they've had the experience or not?
well, first I'm going to say that I learned this. Um, if a person doesn't believe, maybe they're not meant to believe and understand, even though we show them all the signs and they hear all the recordings and the pictures, but they're not believing. I've learned over time that on this life journey, the way I'm not meant to be a doctor or an astronaut or a physicist, they're not meant to see what we see and believe what we believe. It's kind of like the Mandela effect, where so many things happen and so many people say, well, things were this way. And then other people say, no, it was always that way.
Hmm.
It kind of gives me the thought and understanding that they're just not meant to, as if God were up here in the sky and everyone on the entire globe was to look in the sky. 30–40% would say, well, I don't see him,
Right.
because they're not meant within the physical time of this journey to comprehend it through that consciousness where, excuse me, people like us are.
Hmm.
And it took me a while to get that, because my whole thing was, I want to prove it to you that
Right.
ghosts are real. But then I'm saying, what am I proving? Because maybe they're not meant to get it.
Hmm. Maybe they're not. And why should we have to prove something that we already know is a reality? It's like sometimes it's really difficult to be able to explain something to someone, and no matter how hard you try, they're not going to accept it anyway. And my guides used to always say, why are you trying so hard? Why is it so important for you to get people to believe what you believe? And I thought about it for a while. It's like a lot of people do it so they don't feel alone. They don't feel like they're the only ones that believe. They want to have a community of people supporting them in their belief system. So they're always trying to get other people to understand and accept their reality. When in truth is we have many different realities. We have many different truths and many different belief systems. And what we need to do is just share with each other, not by force, not by saying you have to know and believe what I believe, but sharing just so people can have an awareness. Awareness is key.
I agree.
And the rest is up to them if they decide they want to take it a little bit further.
I
So
agree.
yeah. So you've had some paranormal experiences with some spirits. I do believe in one of your books, I believe the first book you have, the Horsfall Chronicles of Demonic Haunting, sounds a little bit more sinister than just a regular spirit. Can you explain a little bit how you came to writing that book and what was your experience with that?
Well, the home that we live in now, we were having ghostly activity in 2010, but wasn't after like the first 6 months. People say that they choose their home. Sometimes the home chooses you, because the house we found on Zillow, and the house was on the contract with another family,
Wow.
and we went on searching for another home. And this is where God is versus the devil. We found another home we liked, and the home was owned by a priest. It was a beautiful home, and we were thinking about it, debating about it, and then we were still in the hunt, my wife and I, to look for homes in Pennsylvania. And my wife contacts me one day and says, "Guess what? About a month later, that house is out of contract." So she made arrangements to come see the house. We fell in love with it and we bought it. And we found our dream home. Home was built in 1996. It is not an old house. It is not an old neighborhood. It's fairly new, right? 20 something years old. But that doesn't make a difference. It's what the house is built on.
Right.
And like the first 6 months were perfect, but it wasn't up until then when toys started going on and off by themselves. And little ghostly activity things started happening in the home where shadows would appear. And you don't know what you're seeing. You don't know why it's happening at the corner of the eye most of the time. It's
Mhm.
never directly on. But the toys, some of them will go on and off without batteries in them. And that's impossible to happen.
Nothing's
So I went on a mission to tell people. I told coworkers. I worked in New Jersey, big corporate job. And I told people, my toys are going off. And then one of the coworkers said, "You should write a book." And I decided not to, but they really convinced me write a book, and I started to write a book, and I had a lot of people help me with the book because I'm not a writer or an editor. I wanted to tell my story,
Right.
and I can tell you that everyone who got involved with helping me tell my story, which was the editor, who was my son's teacher, school teacher. She had previous books out, not on paranormal. And then I had other people in New Jersey help me with finding a psychic to validate what I'm talking about. And do you know that as this was happening in 2013, a black or horsefly would appear in the dead of winter at their homes, in their cars, in my home, on my windshield. And we started to share these stories. We didn't have a title to the book, and then the coworker says, "The Horsefly." And
Oh,
then the end says Chronicles, and that's became the Horsefly Chronicles. But more mysteriously, was people were being affected by the story. Things were happening, whether they believed in paranormal or not. They would tell me stories where their doors were open and shut in their homes. They would hear disembodied female voices. And I found it hard to believe, but yet a part of me was like, there can't be all coincidences that 5, 6 people getting involved with helping me on the book are being affected in very odd ways.
hmm.
And then one by one, each person started to drop off.
Like
Uh,
die?
no, no,
Oh,
no, they were being haunted.
okay.
It's so bad that they stopped. Couldn't deal with it no
Oh,
more.
right.
The editor felt so spooked that she says, "I can't help you no more. It's affecting myself and my family."
Wow.
One of my coworkers who originally started to help me, he fell down the stairs as he was talking about the story to someone else and broke his tailbone.
Mm.
The other coworker started to see visions of his grandfather and his aunt that were deceased. The psychic started to say that little bugs that look like baby horseflies in Westfield, New Jersey. She says that this has never happened to me before. So what was actually happening was the entity was manifesting itself according to thought, belief, and when we talked about it, the book was being built in such a way, it knew exactly all the people involved. It knew their weaknesses, it knew their strengths, and it knew when to affect them according to their lifestyle.
Mm.
Because not only were we learning what I was writing with the editor, but it was learning us
Right.
simultaneously.
It does that. Because when you merge your energy with it, you focus your attention on it, it now focuses attention on you.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
amazing.
what exactly was happening in the house that made you think that there was something demonic going on? Because, with the toys going off and anything, that's a very normal poltergeist situation with spiritual activity.
Yeah, the toys going on and off was one thing, and I was dismissing it when the kids were like saying, I would see it, but I would dismiss it and just try to bring logic to it. But then the family started fighting over nothing, these bad arguments. And then I started to see dark shadows, real
Mhm.
dark now. They were getting darker, and they were the size of like cantaloupe. And I see this thing floating around really fast in the basement, in my kitchen, in the living room. And I says to my wife, I see paranormal teams on television. Maybe we should have one here. And she says, you know what? Let's give it a shot. So I seen a one on television, and I contacted them, and they didn't live too far away from Pennsylvania, and they made arrangements to come down here.
Mhm.
Well, what did I learn? I was skeptical. I had a lot of questions about paranormal teams. They brought every piece of equipment that I didn't understand. There was a group of 7 psychics, mediums, the lead investigator, a shaman. They set up everything. They're doing their recordings. They are on walkie-talkies. They're on the property, basement, living room, 3rd floor. They're everywhere. Front yard. About an hour goes by, nothing is happening at all. I said, I says to my, wow, we're lucky. This is all just an imagination. Yeah. After that hour, one of the psychics starts throwing up my front lawn. It's like gross. The other psychic is in my bathroom screaming her head off, looking at her eyes, say, my eyes. And I run in there, and her eyes look very black, like dark. And then the other medium is scratching on my wall. Now, you know, I spent a lot of money on my home. This is an estate neighborhood. This is not a small house. I made a large investment, and I wasn't too pleased.
Right.
But I wasn't understanding either what I was dealing with here. Um, they stopped the investigation because they felt like they were being affected in all different ways that were tearing them down. A week later, the main character got in touch with me, and he says, I have something to show you. And he came to my home alone and showed me footage. And what the footage was what it looked like to be a demonic looking figure in the basement on the wall. Now we could say, well, matrix sin, optical illusion. He goes, no, I get that. He goes, I've been doing this a long time. Listen to this recording. And on the recording, you hear threats being made by a male evil voice. And behind the male's evil voice is growling. And then he shows me another picture of this red orb. He says, what I believe you're dealing with is demonic entities. And I didn't believe it for one. I have a hard head. I'm from New York. I don't believe in anything. So I says, I appreciate your time and thank you for coming down, validating. And a month later, I contacted another paranormal team. I wanted to see, what they would say.
Right.
and they came down. I remember their lead investigator, she was in my kitchen, and all of a sudden she goes, ow, and then she's bleeding from her ankle. Something on the floor scratched her ankle, and she's bleeding real bad. And I says, well, maybe you bumped into a piece of furniture. That's just me.
Mhm.
And that turned out to be a very bad investigation because they were not only being affected, but the team members were fighting with each other in my house. They were like yelling at each other over different things that didn't make sense to me. So I went on a mission to contact another paranormal team not too far after that for
Third
more
time's a charm,
validation.
right?
And my mission went on, and here is what everyone caught that makes sense to me. There
Mhm.
is one male figure. He calls himself Chief. He demands respect.
Mm.
Chief controls all the other little minions and tells them what to do. Sarah also is part of this somehow, this chief man. So I had researchers, actual land researchers, nothing to do with paranormal, do an investigation on uh, between Easton, Forks, Delaware River. And what they've learned is that the Iroquois Indians who were on this land and around here lost a battle. And a lot of the Iroquois Indians were very young and they were slaughtered. They lost the treaty. There was a lot of bloodshed. And then it simultaneously comes to the pictures that were taken by the team throughout the course of time here that they look like false face masks. They look like masks that something is putting on them. So Chief, we believe, is the main character who controls the land. Even though the home is here, he still claims all the land between Forks and Delaware.
Mm.
There's been a lot of death here, both physical in the river of drownings. I'm not too far away from the river. Suicidal deaths, slaughter from the Iroquois Indians, and then it became farmland. This was Eula's farm after that. Nothing was here. And then builders years later took it and made developments out of it. The home, I've lit sage, which was the worst thing I could do in this home. And I didn't know that. I thought sage is, I like the smell and it does have a lot of healing factors. But what it did was it triggered things to a sense where it became so evil in the home that each family member was fighting. Toys are going on and off. The lights are blinking. The cell phones aren't working. This thing had complete control because it knew that we were trying to, in our own way, remove it from the presence of the home. So we lost that battle, and I contacted a ministry. And the ministry came here in 2015, but you could find all this stuff on YouTube by simply typing in the Horsefly Chronicles. And the ministry, they were here a complete day, morning till night. They did a great job. They gave us deliverance. They blessed the home, the property. They had shamans walking the property. Bill Freeman was here at that time. And they felt like after the battle, the house was cleared. And it was. The next day was Sunday, and it was very light in the home. It felt like we have our home back. It just felt
Mm.
lightness. My kids are in the living room playing with their toys, and my wife and I said, "We won. We won this battle. We called the ministry. Thank you. We're so happy." And Monday came around the next day, and everything was nice. And then Monday night, I had to go into the basement because I have an office in the basement. And then this little toy dinosaur goes on and off by itself. And maybe I kicked it by accident. Then I see shadows casting along the basement wall. And then the kid starts screaming at the same time on the third floor that the lights are going on and off. And the chandelier in the foyer swing, which can't sway because it's big. It's a big, heavy one, unless there's an earthquake. Um, we lost. It came back. It played hide and seek.
Mm.
It knew what we were going to do when I did it, when the ministry did it. And not only now did it affect me and my family, it went after the entire ministry in different ways. All of them in different states. So I felt defeated, my wife and I. And about a few months later, we contacted a local priest from a Catholic church. And the priest comes here and he's blessing the home. Nothing happens. Not a blink of a bulb, not a shadow, nothing. And he asked me, you feel like your house is affected, but my child, nothing is here. And I says, thank you. I really appreciate hearing that. And he left. And then a few hours later, the shadows come casting back into the basement. So what we have also learned again is that it will go after those that try to remove it. And some people it doesn't care to go after.
Mm.
It'll just play hide and seek. It'll go away and then reappear when they're gone, and then let you pay the price when they're gone.
Mm.
So to date, the Horsefly Chronicles home with some of the last teams, like we had True Ghost Stories here a year ago. That'll be on television, I guess, in the next few months. We had Paraflex here a few months ago, and we had NESPR come here a couple of years ago. And we asked about Sarah. Well, now Sarah was an attachment that I had through adolescence. And they're doing their recording, and they asked me to ask this certain question, not being recorded on a spirit box, but an actual digital recorder with no static, no nothing. And I asked Sarah, who are you? And I stopped. And then Dan Rivera played it back. And it said in this evil, chilling voice, go F yourself. In this male evil voice. And then Dan looked at me and he says, Phil, Sarah's not Sarah. She never was. She's it. She can play the part of everything, anywhere, and make you think she is all these different things, but she's the it. She's the one behind everything, the chaos, the emotional distress, the fighting, the arguing, the shadows, the car accidents, the heart attacks. She goes after everyone, different ways, the ways that she finds their weakness, and she finds their weakness through their darkness, through their thoughts, through their consciousness. It awaits, it watches, he was saying, and it destroys, it separates, it isolates. When he was here and they validated that, I remember going into the living room upstairs. And he was telling me, they know the Conjuring, they've dealt with the Amityville, the Warrens, like this is the branch off the Warrens legacy now, and all these different locations. And he's reading a prayer. And as he's reading a prayer, the lights in the kitchen and the living room go so bright. There's about 7 of us in there. We have to dim our eyes, like almost cover our eyes with our hands. And then the lights went back to normal. And we all witnessed this. It was gone. It was over. And we felt it was over. The next day, I go to Hobby Lobby. I'm buying crosses, crucifixes, Mother Mary statues. I feel good. My family feels good. We have gotten our home back. This is awesome. This was July 2020. For the 6 months following, after NESPR was here, we had our home back. But the 7th month, We lost our home because it came back. It seemed like time is not measured by them, but only by us.
Right.
And it seems like when they're pushed into a corner with religious artifacts or readings, they lay dormant up until they want to appear again within our lives. And that's why I had a couple of the teams come here after that to say, is it gone or is it us? Now it got stronger to the way where on one paranormal team, I heard this thing and they heard it talking on walkie talkies that are not paranormal equipment, the actual walkie talkie, where one of the members is talking to another one on the property and getting a response. He goes out to the property and the person says, well, I didn't respond to you. We have to understand that just because we don't see and don't believe doesn't mean it does not exist. It's been my mission. Now I'm the messenger, and my wife. We teach the world through our home, through trial and error and tribulations, that paranormal phenomenon does exist.
Mhm.
And then we say to ourselves, well, if it could affect us in our home, then could it affect the possibility of others and world leaders to distract their mental capability and the way a person gets taken over through a form of possession? Can it actually do that to destroy mankind?
Mhm.
Because there's no limit, there's no boundaries to just go to a home from an entity, a particular person. It could destroy everything if it really wants to, because it can manipulate the mind and the consciousness. We've learned that this thing controls thoughts, controls the way you think. So you can come into my home and other homes too around the world. I'm sure that, oh, you feel excited to investigate this case. And then a few hours later, you're depleted. There's nothing in you. First, the batteries on your equipment go dead. Nothing's working right. Your cell phone's getting really hot. The electronics are all being affected and manipulated, but also you're getting tired and you're getting drained and you want to stop because it's shutting you down now.
Mhm.
It's already went for everything else. Now it's going to shut you down. And just because you leave the location doesn't mean because you live so far away, it doesn't follow if it wants to, because it can.
Right.
And I've learned that. I didn't believe that at all, but I've learned that. And it can not only follow, spirits can touch, spirits can scratch, spirits can be malevolent, these evil spirits now, not the good ones. This thing has a name, which I will not reveal on the radio. It was given a name of a certain demon. And the demon, it's been validated by so many teams. This is the thing we're talking about. Yes. And at one point in 2016, I had a demonologist come here, someone who worships the devil, someone who practices Satanism. I wanted them here for a reason. I didn't want just the religious aspects coming to my home. I wanted to see if someone who practices that dark realm, what they would feel and sense in my home. They came in from far away. They come into the basement all nice and happy, and they're going, okay. They put their arms out, and all of a sudden they start shaking it and they get really mad and they just get away from me because I'm about to destroy everything and everybody. And we get that person out of the home. We're in the backyard and he says the same name. This is what it is. He called it exactly what everyone else called it. So we teach the world now that this does exist. Be careful. If you want to investigate locations, tread lightly. Don't put too much into the mind of um, manifesting it, because you just don't know. It could be any time of your life where it could say, now I'm ready for you because you came to where I was.
Well, sounds like you have a very long story with a lot of paraprofessionals coming and doing the best they can to help you out. Um, I got a few issues with some of the things that they said they did. It isn't something a rescue medium would do, I can tell you that. There's a lot of things that they did not do. to safeguard themselves, safeguard you, to close doors, and to find out exactly what this is. You can't go off of information that the spirit tells you, because most likely it's always going to be a lie,
Most
especially
definitely,
if they're there to manipulate you. You know,
yes.
I've been tapping into the energy of the entity that's in your home, and it's actually a collective energy. It's not just one spirit, it's actually many spirits. There's actually three that I've picked up on, and one was actually murdered, and it is a girl, and she was actually they were actually trying to suffocate me as I was sitting here listening to you. I'm like, no, not going to happen. So somebody was actually choked to death.
I want to just tell you something really quick.
Mhm.
That's true.
Oh,
A well-known psychic, I'm not relieving names, but came here back in 2017, and she was in my foyer. She wanted to see what this case was about. She grabbed her throat and
mhm.
she said, "Something's choking me. Something's choking me."
Yeah, one for my throat. And I was like, no, 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 you're not doing that. Not at all. And then I see
It
two
went
men
for your
standing
throat?
next to her. Yeah, they went for my throat as you were telling the story. Yeah. But I'm used to that. I've been attacked by many, many spirits. That doesn't influence me at all. But I will tell you this. So there's a girl and there's two guys. And they may call themselves chief, but none of them are Native American. I can tell you that. None of them. They're playing off of the history of the land, and they're telling stories, because I'm looking at both spirits right now. They don't have a single, they may have maybe 1% Native American in them, but they're not who they say they are. And so you send me
Wow.
pictures, I'll link in, and I'm gonna go in and make sure and see what's going on with you. It's just basically what I picked up on just the last few minutes of you
I'd
discussing.
like to show you the back wall where they come from. If you
Yeah,
don't mind, I can turn the camera.
absolutely.
The wall where they all come from, and here's how they come. Um, they'll when investigations taking place, or if someone's here to try to remove or bless the home, sometimes they come as these snaky shadows.
Yep.
Like you think the light's flickering, right? And it
Right.
looks like little snakes,
Yep.
and you're like, maybe it's just my eyes or the bulbs, right? And then it gets dark, like
Mhm.
solid dark.
Right.
And then they start taking the pictures, like the teams,
Mhm.
and they capture these massive darkness, these outlines of figures, like people.
Right. Yep.
That's where they come from.
Okay, so you have two portals over there. Yeah, you have one big portal and one small portal right next to it. And so they're actually hiding, and they're actually they've come out of that portal, and they're just standing there looking at me. And then you have a smaller portal where they actually bring other spirits in. So one's a hiding portal, the one to the right near the baby seat. That's actually a portal where they actually bring other spirits in. So you're gonna have a full party going on in your house. It isn't just gonna be the three of them. It's gonna be multitude. And actually hearing there is sexual activity going on. There was murder going on there, and they've actually done a few rituals in that area. So one is actually a younger male. I'm gonna put him probably around the age 30 to 33. He's the one that's giving you the hardest time. He certainly likes messing with you because he actually steps into your mind when you're sleeping at night. I'm hearing he messes with your dreams as well. So he's the one that you got to worry about. So I'm not feeling anything demonic, but then I'm not there. And I do know with history, 25 years of doing rescue mediumship, they will mimic themselves to be like shadow creatures. They'll camouflage themselves, do some shape shifting to manipulate you and cause fear. Any of the mediums that walked into your house, if they were influenced anyway, did not shield, did not protect, did not ground, did not bring in their spiritual team, did not set up a perimeter of protection. They didn't do any of that if they were able to be manipulated or vulnerable in any way, shape, or form. So I would not have approved those paranormal teams going into your space. But that's just me, because the
Well, let
professionalism.
me ask you this question. You said there's three, which I've heard. You said there's two male and a female, which I've heard.
Good.
The question is why?
Yeah, the question is because anytime you're bringing all these paranormal teams in, so they're getting a lot of attention through these paranormal teams, for one. Second, and I feel like one's like a high school student. Like this guy is like really messing around with someone. I can feel him laughing behind you. So if anyone's watching this, if you could pick up on and see what you're picking up on as well. I can literally see like a kid that's like 17, 18 years old that's like literally laughing at this whole situation. They're gonna hype up their energy whenever any paranormal teams come in. They're going to mess with anyone. And the fact that don't tell me they're going after the kids, because anytime they go after kids, I put on my big girl pants and I start getting really mean with spirits because I get very protective of these kids. But I am feeling that these two boys and the girl's actually doing most of the manipulation. I have to tell you that for some reason. The girl is one pulling all the strings, not the boys. One of the guys that, like I said, the 33-year-old, he's messing with you the most. He literally wants to take over your body. That's what I keep hearing him say.
So let me ask you this: was he once in the physical realm as a person?
Yes, absolutely. They've all been people. This is not a demonic entity whatsoever. But the thing is, when you have a collectiveness of many spirits together at a very low frequency and tone, they will mimic a demonic entity. And not only that, but they're actually going to make themselves look like it and tell you that they are in same shape or form. That's how they're able to manipulate you through fear. They say that they're an entity. They're going to throw in demonic names to you to make you think that they are a demonic entity and you're going to be afraid. The best way for them to control you through free will is to make you feel afraid and that you don't have control. So we really need to get a good rescue team there and literally bringing in spirit police, bringing in spiritual warriors and putting them in lockdown, because what they're doing is actually against spiritual law.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Do they have names?
I'm getting a Brian. That's like the high school student name. The 33-year-old, he won't give me his name. He's just like standing there like this going, oh no, I'm not talking to you. He is not happy with me right now. But the girl that's there, I keep getting named Katie or a Catherine, this K-A-T name connected in with her. Oh, she didn't like that at all. So she's the one, for some reason I feel, and I don't mean this to say this, and I know we're recording this, but I feel like she would have been the one actually bringing girls in, and the boys would rape her. Whatever victim girl would come in, and then the girl would end up being the person who did the murder. So I'm hearing there's a little bit of a coercion going on with these three bringing victims in to rape them and murder them.
But so it's not in the actual home because the home was built in '96. So it's the land that this was happening.
Area, yes. And I'm actually hearing that your wife is a medium. So I don't know if anyone ever told her that she is a medium, but I'm hearing she's actually the one that brought a lot of the spirits in, because the spirits weren't in your home before you moved in. It just happened to be the perfect storm.
Yeah, the perfect storm.
You had those spirits wandering the area, jumping around from various homes. You have a wife that happens to be medium. And do you have a daughter?
No.
Who is the younger girl connected to your wife?
There is no.
Like a niece? I'm just hearing there's a younger girl connected to your wife as well that also has the gift. She may not be in the house, but I'm just hearing she has the gift as well. So because of all the paranormal experience you've gone through, it's opened up your chakras and your receptibility of being able to connect to spirits. You're going to be able to feel them more than you ever have before. So now you've opened up your mediumship ability. So you have two mediums in the home and you have three spirits that are trying to mess with anyone that will give them the attention they're looking for. Perfect storm.
Amazing.
You would have picked up on the demonic entity from the moment you walked through that door. And the fact that you went 6 months without getting anything at all tells me it wasn't there before you moved in.
Oh.
Yeah. So something happened between you moving in and things that would pick up.
Do you know what's interesting is that the home we lived in 2009, no paranormal activity in different part of Pennsylvania, nothing, not a shadow, not a blink, not even a conversation. Everything was perfect. Family, it was a picture perfect family. Everything was successful. It wasn't up until we came to this home. And again, the home, I would say, chose us. I know you've seen that. I believe something was here originally because when we went to the closing of this home, again, this is a state neighborhood, so these homes start at 500, 600. These are real corporate people that live in these areas, but they weren't happy people at the closing, and they're part of their closing check came here a month later for several $1,000s. And I tried to reach out to them. They would not accept my phone call.
Mm.
They were miserable and they were broke at the end. Because I remember going through with the inspector and they like, the kids were crying for food. I'm like, I'll get you pizza.
Wow.
So they were being depleted of something, or something was waiting.
Right.
Because the energy that I felt in this home, and again, I've had an attachment my entire life. I've never felt what was here. Now I had Brian Cannell here, who was with John Zaffis.
Yep.
He wasn't here, but Brian Cannell was. We had National Ghost Hunting Day here, and he's scientific. And I asked him, "What do you think is in my home?" And he says, "You're on a massive portal. That
Good.
these things come and go."
Yes.
And on National Ghost Hunting Day in 2017, he goes into the basement as they're broadcasting from around the world, all the different states. And once he enters the basement, the whole feed everywhere, all the states shut down at the same time. Everything shut down. There's an actual article on this whole case.
Well, spirits deplete EMF. So any type of electromagnetic frequency, spirits will actually step in, pull the electromagnetic frequency out of the electronic equipment and use that to manifest in a physical way.
Wow.
So that's actually something very, very, very common for that to
Amazing.
actually happen.
Isn't that amazing?
You actually have to put an energetic field around your electronic equipment so spirits don't actually suck it out of them.
Wow.
A lot of energy manipulation and control of energy, especially with EMF. You can actually ground your electronic equipment into the earth, pull up EMF from the earth, and actually create a barrier of electromagnetic field of control. So spirits won't actually do that. But a lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
So I do feel like maybe the spirits were in the area before, and there's a very good chance that the homeowners that were there before, because of all their financial crisis and maybe their anxiety, their depression, their trauma that they were going through, was enough to create enough of a rift in the dimensional walls, allowing those spirits to come and kind of accumulate around the house. And then, of course, because they have a portal there, you're bringing in multitude of spirits. So it's not always the same ones. Even though I do feel the same ones are always there, I feel you have different spirits coming in at different times. And that's why you're going to have various forms of spiritual activity in the home, not just one. So, but again, this is just what I've read in the last 20 minutes. I would have to
it's pretty amazing that, because, out of 52 paranormal teams, and then we had Dinner with a Ghost here, a big event back in 2018, and the girl was mocking, there's no ghost here and all that stuff. And she grabs her throat and she can't breathe. And I have the picture, and then they rush her outside, and she's gasping for air. It just seems like it goes for the throat on so many different occasions.
Yep.
It makes you stop breathing. And the fact that you picked it up was very interesting to me.
Well,
So
they're holding someone down by their throat and raping them. So
really?
Yeah, they stepped right into my throat and I just started ripping it apart. I'm like,
Well,
no.
let me ask you this. Then what time era would that have been?
I'm feeling the 90s, like 95.
Wow.
So not that long ago, because I'm seeing high school jackets on one of these kids.
So maybe this happened when it was farmland on the farm?
The thing is that there's a very good chance that the kids or the people involved with this lived in your area. Maybe not in that neighborhood, but definitely in that area. Because they're showing me a car. Like they would go out and search for their victims in this car. It's a dark car, kind of looks like a Honda. And they're searching, oh, I just got a yes. And they're searching for their victims in this area. And if your area was a woodsy area before the development was there, that's probably where they buried some of their victims. The reason you might be having paranormal activity isn't just because of the spirits that are there that are trying to manipulate and scare you, but you have the energy of their victims there too. And that's enough to create enough of a portal, a shift in the dimensional walls. And that's what these nasty spirits are feeding off of, is all this fear and all this trauma and abuse. And it just is a continual cycle. And unless someone actually comes and closes the portals and puts these spirits in lockdown, you're going to continually have this problem. So
Wow.
hopefully we can get it resolved for you shortly.
Sarah's a real name or a fake name?
Sarah's a real name, and she is not connected to that.
Who is she?
Sarah's actually somebody that's been an earthbound spirit that's been with you for years. I was picking up on her energy before.
Do you know why?
I'm hearing her say that she felt very protected around you. There's something about you that she felt like you could protect her because she was hurt by her mother. So I'm hearing abuse. I'm hearing some type of stomach issue that was that happened with her death. And then I feel like she was ignored towards the end of her life and died in a very tragic way at her home. And I do feel it may have been in your area, but at the same time, you could have been just driving by her area. She picked up on the fact that you're a protector, jumped into your auric field and just followed you home. There may not have been a past life connection, or there may have been, because spirits recognize other spirits. Whether new body or old body, the spirits recognize you. They feel that familiar connection to you. And so because of that, like energy attracts like energy, they're going to jump right into your auric field. I would tell you Sarah's younger. Sarah's not an older woman. I'm getting around the age 7 or 8 with Sarah.
That's her.
So she's still with you too. Because I can
Now?
see behind you. Yeah,
You see her?
I can see her. Yeah.
You
So
see her with the physical eye or the mind's eye?
mind's eye, my third eye. Yeah. But
That's
then I
amazing.
do see with my physical, I see apparitions and I see their auric fields. And I see variations of dimensions of spirits stepping in and out of dimensions, and vortexes and portals I can see as well with my physical eye. So she's smiling. She's going like this behind you.
What is she wearing?
She's really cute. Long brown hair, red dress.
Red dress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really cute.
That's amazing that you picked that up.
Well, when they want to be known, they're front and center. And any medium, this is probably going to pick up on it too. And I'd love for anyone to write down in the notes on this, anything you're picking up on, because I'm just picking up on things as I'm talking with you. And I'd love for some of my rescue students to step in. If you want to, you don't have to, just post like an outside picture of your house. That way mediums can link into every bit of spiritual activity that's going on in your home just by your picture. So
Most definitely.
some mediums do that for you as well.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
And you have your radio show, which I'm sure you talk about your stories as well. Tell us a little bit about
my radio show, my wife and I, we live this haunted life, and my family, my kids. And yes, my kids have been affected multiple ways. Like I said, we've had different measures of people that are very well respected in the within the communities, and whether it's churches, and it just seems to know before they get here, they get a visit. And it also seems to go behind the walls and wait for them to leave.
Yeah.
And then reappears. So Horsefly Chronicles Radio, we decided to do a radio show a few years ago, interviewing other people, not just talking about what we experience, but we want to hear from people around the world what they're experiencing. And we talk to celebrities, we talk to doctors, lawyers, we talk to people that are way up there in the science level. We talk to all different spectrums of life. And I can tell you that what we've learned is it's not just our story, but they have a lot of their own stories that are quite unique, that they deal with paranormal activity as well, no matter who you are. I talk to millionaires. It's not just the average person or the person who you may think, well, it's not true because they don't have a lot going on. No. I talk to all walks of life.
Right.
Check out Horsefly Chronicles Radio. You'd be surprised who we have on our show. And we learn. It's a learning process, and they do it. And look, they're in movies, and they want to get this story out there because they also want people to know, like my wife and I do, that this does exist. But it also raises that big question in my mind, if it could affect us. And I said this in the beginning of your show, and I think about this now, it could affect world leaders. And if it could affect world leaders throughout time, has it already? And we go back to all these atrocious things that have happened with these dictators to destroy mankind, their people, other religions. Are they manipulated by forces that are unseen through the mind? Because I don't believe anyone comes into this world with such hatred towards everyone. I mean, there are cases where there's mental sickness, I get that, but living this, I've learned a lot. I've learned that the way it affects the mind, you just don't have to see anything, but it can control you.
Mind over
And you,
matter,
you I'm
control
sorry?
of the mind, control of the mind. And is one
Yes,
of the things I teach my rescue students, mental conditioning. Learn how to
yes,
control your own thoughts. Very important.
yes, most definitely. And that's how we came up with our show.
It's amazing. And thank you so much for, your story and allowing me to step in and connect. You still have Sarah kind of running around you. I do want to tell you that she does feel like she's protecting you now with everything that's happening in your house. So she would be the one that you'd want to really talk to and kind of focus on because she's going to tell you the truth, what's really happening.
I'm going to tell you, it's interesting. We had Dave Spinks here a while back, years ago, and she would come through on the recordings, whatever he was using, um, and then the male figure would push her out through his voice,
Yep.
and she says, "I have to go. I have to go." We had this on recording.
Mhm.
I have to go. The bad man's coming. The bad man's coming. They chase her away. And then we had someone here who was very, very well respected with a Ouija board, who knew, very talented, and she was communicating with Sarah. And then all of a sudden, she was being affected, like she was being stabbed in the back. The medium who's doing the board, and then this male thing comes through and starts making threats, trying to shut Sarah up.
Right.
So, my question is, are these other things you picked up always trying to keep her quiet?
It's trying to keep anybody quiet. Sarah's trying to connect to you to let you know what's really happening. She's your eyes and ears in the spirit world. So if they're gonna keep her quiet so you don't know the truth.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So she's your key. You need to have a medium connect to her, separate her from the other spirits, which is actually kind of easy to do when you're trained. Separate her from the other spirits and actually get all the information from her as far as what's really happening. And remember, she has a very limited perspective because not all spirits see everything. They don't know everything. And remember, she has a young girl's mind. So she may not understand everything based on what we can understand as adults. So you might get limited information from her, but it's enough information for you to know, okay, I know these guys are not a demon. They're just here messing with me and they're messing with her. And that should really upset you, the fact that they're messing with a little girl that's in spirit. Your guides want you to remember you're a protector.
Amazing.
You're there for a reason. So we just need to find out what that reason is. So,
Well, we'd love to have you come down one day if it's possible.
yeah,
Um, we're in Easton, Pennsylvania. This is the Horsefly Chronicles home. And coming here, you remote viewed, it seems like, right? You're remote
yeah.
viewed, you see with the third eye. And let's see what you pick up when you're actually in the presence. Like we had Chris Moon, Denise Garcia here years ago, and they said something similar to what you said. There's a portal,
Mhm.
a vortex of time
It was right
that
near your love sign. That's where the portal is. You can actually get some dowsing rods. Some dowsing rods would be able to show
yeah, we
the
did
portal.
that. Yeah.
Okay. There's a big one. It's gonna
And
take
that's what Laurie Johnson said too. Laurie Johnson from Goes to Shepherdstown said the same thing, that they come and they go. There's just,
yeah,
it's like an airport with these things.
that's right. That's right. So thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story. We could be here like all day. I could be here like reading the energy all
No,
day.
no, I really appreciate it. And the fact that you said the throat, that's sticking in my mind right now.
Yeah.
There's so many cases that are documented about that.
I'm going to tell you, I picked up on at least 4 victims that were connected to that group, and they were all young girls.
That's horrible.
That I feel 2 are still earthbound, 2 have crossed over. So I might just step in and try to help those girls cross over, just because they need the help. They're
Wow.
for sure. So
Yeah, whatever pictures I could send you, let me know.
um,
Um, well, a lot of my stuff is on my Facebook page, and YouTube. A lot of the investigations that took place with the photos are public information, and the teams. Just Google the Horsefly Chronicles. You'll see
okay.
who was there and what they did and what they've caught and all that stuff. But it kind of makes a lot of sense what you said today, and I really appreciate it because not only was this an interview, but this was more than an interview. This was some kind of a form of validating
Right.
Sarah and these other punks.
Right. I'm always here to help. And sorry, I just being a medium. I'm seeing the spirits around you. I'm like, ah. Let me see what I can help you with. But again, do you have a website for people to connect to you?
Well, you can go on my Facebook page. My Facebook page has all the links to different areas. And there's also a book in the making by Christina Corsetti, who owns Paranormal Magazine, of my life. And it's called The Family Cabin. And it goes a little bit deeper than the show today. And it takes place upstate New York in a cemetery. So ironically,
You gotta
yeah,
watch
we
out
look
for
at
the cemeteries.
it's a lot more in depth, but it's at the same time, this has been a unique experience for me and fascinating and a learning curve as well.
Well, I'm grateful for you to share your story because it's going to help a lot of people who are going through this themselves, and they can at least have, a frame of reference, a story to listen to, let them know that they're not alone. Plus, there's a lot of developing mediums that would probably love to step in and find out some information for you as well. Always say it takes a village or an army to be able to step in and really help somebody out, especially when, you have some really nasty spirits that are there. So anything we can do to help you, we absolutely will.
Most definitely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone watching, and send us your comments or whatever you've picked up on and anything that you want to share. I'm grateful for having you all here, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.